Mr. Speaker, I'd like to once again rise to address the water crisis that are facing not just California, but our nation and throughout the world. Today, global communities and businesses, organizations have joined together, and the White House is holding a water summit to raise awareness of the 650 million people around the world who don't have access to safe drinking water, and are urging leaders to focus on ways in which we can increase access to safe sanitary water. This is appropriate, but it's long overdue. On the website, Water Day US, it states that water stress is the impact of a lack of water that has on a particular sector or population. Water stress affects nutrition, public health, environmental services, housing, urban growth, and our national security. And to be sure, national security is directly related to our ability to grow food to ensure that American consumers are independent and have sufficient nutrition for their daily consumption. Water then, therefore, is the resource issue of the future, not only for our nation, but throughout the world. These impacts of not having a reliable and safe water supply are all too familiar for those of us who live in the San Joaquin Valley in California and my colleagues who represent that area. So while I believe it's fitting and appropriate that we recognize that there is a nation and worldwide issue regarding our water resources and how we manage them, with the planet having 7 billion people last year, and by the middle of this century, another 2 billion or 9 billion people, we need to look at both short-term and long-term comprehensive solutions to our water needs, not just throughout the world, but here in the United States and specifically in California. So I find it extremely disappointing that California's San Joaquin Valley is not at the forefront of this discussion after 4 years of devastating drought. And while I empathize with those in Flint, Michigan, and other areas of the country, like those of us in the San Joaquin Valley, we have been facing water shortages for 4 years, and it's getting much worse, and there is less national attention being focused on our plight. In the Valley, instead of lead poisoning due to the failure of all levels of government, as we've seen in Flint, Michigan, we are dealing with water that has high nitrate levels in drinking water. In addition to that, in many places, we don't have access to water at all. And the solutions are clear. We need to increase federal funding for infrastructure to build resiliency during drought periods and reduce the impacts of water quality, using all the water tools in our water toolbox. We need to increase coordination between local, state, and federal agencies to reduce the impacts of communities impaired by water quality or a lack of an access to water. And finally, we need to increase on focusing, ensuring that regulations, where they are in place, achieve their intended purpose and not minimize the negative impacts that they have with contradictory results. For instance, due to the decisions made by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Bureau of Reclamation is required to operate pumps in California's water system under what I believe are scientifically flawed provisions, biological opinions, which have lost or result hundreds and thousands of acre-feet of water. This year, the federal agencies operated within, if they had operated within flexibility provided even in those flawed biological opinions, San Joaquin Valley communities could have been provided an additional 200,000 to 300,000 acre-feet of additional water. In addition to that, that would have benefited over 400,000 households. As a result of the drought and the inability to capture water that is flowing in the system, over 600,000 acres of prime productive agricultural land have gone unplanted, and we've seen families impacted. And families of literally that do not have access to water have had to bottle in water. There is a very certain human toll, the impact that is taking place, that have been provided highly uncertain benefits for species. This is unacceptable, it's avoidable, and it's immoral. I urge the federal agencies to take action to do experimental increase in pumping with increased detection and monitoring so we can find out if in fact Delta smelt and salmon traveling through the Delta are even being harmed by the exact pumping levels under discussion. So while I appreciate the attention and the comprehensive plan the administration is trying to implement to solve our nation's water crisis, we need short-term solutions now so that farmers, farm workers, and farming communities in the San Joaquin Valley do not go without a water supply under the federal project for a third year in a row. Additionally, we must do everything possible to get federal legislation passed and signed into law that will not only deal with our short-term needs, but to deal with our long-term needs as well. We passed the House bill last year. We need to get Feinstein's bill passed so we can go to conference. Because if the federal agencies don't act, and they have not been doing the job that I would like to see them do, then Congress must act.
Time has expired.
Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.